And before we get started, I have a Liina question for you. Estonia is a true startup nation. What is your secret sauce?
What is our secret sauce? Well, the country is tiny, so you will always find someone who knows someone who can help you. I mean, the president is one phone call away, and this really, it helps. So network, people, ask for help.
So it's everybody, you are like country club.
Yeah, I mean, unicorn founders, they're your neighbor, they're someone's cousin, brother. That's it. It doesn't seem like a faraway dream, because you know them.
It sounds like a Finland. Stage is yours, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started.
Really excited to tackle this important topic. And I have here with me some wonderful women. Tessy, entrepreneur and investor. Kaidi, founder of Funderbeam, and he's also a wonderful entrepreneur and a global advocate for funding for women. So let's get going. All right. So, I mean, this topic has been gone over and over again. But let's start with that. So, as you are an advocate for funding women, I will address this first one for you, and then we will get into all of the bleak statistics and see where we go. So why is funding still unequal between men and women, and how do we change this? So, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
That's the billion-dollar question, or the $1.7 trillion question, actually. That's the size of the funding gap between male and female entrepreneurs before COVID. Why do we have that gap? I think it's very complex and multifaceted. I think, number one, we don't have enough male investors investing in women entrepreneurs. We don't have enough women investors writing checks, and enough women asking for the money, because we're there. So I think it's multifaceted, and we're going to talk about it in different layers now, in complexity.
Yeah, this is very true. Issues there are many, but I guess let's go straight to the numbers. So the data is clear. Diverse teams return 2 times higher returns on investment. However, the funding doesn't follow somehow. So recent data is 95% of the funding went to only male-led teams. Some went to mixed teams, and then we
1.9% for women only.
Yeah, and female founders raised how many percent last year, Kaidi?
1 in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a shirt. First, I wanted to ask people sitting in the audience, how many of you are investors? Cool. How many of you have female founders in your portfolio?
But they're all the women investors. Look.
There's one guy who has female founders in the portfolio?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So, I have a T-shirt we made with Estonian female founders because, and this says, I am the one fabulous %, right? Because 2018, based on Atomicus report, female founders raised 3% in Europe. 2022, this number declined to 1%. So from 3 to 1. And so we decided to speak up with Estonian female founders to raise the matter, because that's not okay. It should be from 3 to 6, not from 3 to 1. And when there's smoke, I don't see.
Yeah, this is a smoke screen. Hello. You need to see us. That's a big part of the problem.
Super.
You don't see women entrepreneurs. Can you get rid of the smoke? Let's clear it. True.
Anyway, but the numbers. I tell you a story, or just so that you could start thinking in kind of in figurative way. Imagine you have a son and a daughter, and you give one candy to your daughter, and you give 99 candies to your son, and you give them a task, build a candy shop. Which of them is most probably to succeed? And this is where the problem starts, is how much capital there is available for the female founders. And what do we, or actually I'm the founder, but what do investors expect women to do with the capital invested? And we've been discussing the matter with not only with Estonian female founders, but with the female founders, at least in Europe. And there's one thing what is coming out is the size of the funds we raise. And there's so many examples that exactly the same stage of the company, solving the same problem, but men and male founders, they get 15 million, whereas female, they get 3 million. So there's also what you can do with the capital, and do we get the capital to survive, or do we get the capital, take a risk and really grow? And if we get only one candy, what can we do with the candy? And
I want to add to the 1%, because 1% is the amount of global government procurement that goes to women-owned business. And 1% is the global corporate procurement that goes to women-owned business. This is systemic. So it's governments are not funding women, corporates are not giving business to women-owned businesses, and then we have private investors. So this is across the board, and that's why we need to know it's bigger than just investors, as in angel, VC, and private equity.
Yeah. But now coming back to your question, when you said that female founders are delivering 2 times more return on the investments, this is one of the reasons, because we are survivors and we need to survive with just one candy. So we are building companies having this just one candy, and this is how the return is delivered. You have to survive and you have to deliver the results.
Amazing, yeah. Lots to do, and also just a quick point that if we keep talking that female founders bring 2 times more returns, I don't think investors believe it. I have a good example, also present here, a company called Deal. They have a booth there, female founded, fastest growing company ever, overtook Slack. So, I mean, there is proof if you look for it.
But also, if we ask the audience, who are the famous women entrepreneurs? Give us some names.
Yeah, Kaidi.
Yeah, Melanie Perkins. Okay, but it take a while for that to percolate. And we need to have those names off the top of our tongues as well. This is a representation issue too.
But yeah, going over to the topic of networks. So I was at the LP Summit yesterday, and there was one great panel where one really great investor pointed out that they would like to invest in more women, but about 10% of deal flow they get is women. Now, and then it might seem to investors that that's all there is. So I guess from there, let's talk about these biases and stereotypes. So, why has the needle not moved? Is it to do with the networks? Is it to do with the biases? And what about the biases from other women, for example? Tessy.
So it is true that the needle is a little bit stuck. It has moved over the last 28 years. In VC, only 8% are represented by women. 2% of these minority groups, and a little bit under 1% is Black investors. So I think we still have a long way to go. However, I think how we can get over this is, and I'm looking forward to that, actually, is STEM as a domain, for example. If you have more females in STEM, the next founders of companies of engineers will be women. And as such, I think it will grow. We had in 1994 around 34% of females, and now we are 35% of females in STEM, so we are getting up there. But with biases as well, I think it's also an educational part. And it's a lot of, you have companies and they call it, let me just see how they did call that, the Harvard Business Review, add women and stir, where they add women to companies, but just to have women in companies. But it doesn't work always with the company culture, the system, as you were saying, a leadership as well, and strategy really. And as such, just to add women doesn't mean it's going to work. And knowledge, know-how, also mentorship, and making sure people are equipped with what they need to do in order to do their job properly is also lacking quite a lot. Example from small children on them. We were talking about this. I'm a mom of 4. And but let me take my example actually. I'm being advocated as ex-princess of Luxembourg. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, am I just that, right? I'm a founder of companies. I was in the military for 6 years, created my own charity, scaled it up in 21 regions, and so on. I did so much more. And yet, when I saw how I'm advocated here, I'm just advocated as the ex-wife of someone, right? And I think we're still struggling with that we women, and also that, right? Who really wanted to meet me here as ex-princess of Luxembourg, right? It was like, oh, what does she do here? What does she have to say, right? There's that instant justification, or that instant, oh, we know already, right? And I think we women face this all the time, that stigma and bias that people think they know us, just because they have seen a book like that before, so it must be the same story, right? Instead of taking the time and actually looking at, well, what does that person bring on the table? With that as well, with biases, which comes as well with finding investors for female founding companies. I just finished my board director, was the youngest woman of 4, with around 50 men over 55, 60. And even in the course material, I'm 37 years old, it said, don't hire under 45 because they're too young. And I was like, okay, why am I here? Right? You took me from the waiting list because my CV was so amazing, and yet you're telling me I'm unhireable until I'm 45. Why? And then also, you know, things like, oh, you're so smart, was a given that I heard every day from fellow colleagues, chairmen of the biggest companies in the world, which were class roommates with me. You're so smart and beautiful. Yeah, you're so smart too, right? Why does it matter? Why do we women still need to do these extracurriculum diplomas, kind of laminate them, have them in our backpack in case of emergency when people doubt our brain cells? And it's really just that, I think, when we kind of like raise the education from a small age on. And the story I wanted to say before I got into this is that I take my children everywhere to conferences. My oldest will be 18 years old, and he's the first grandchild of the royal family. And as such, the reporters came rushing to him. He was 8 years old at the time. We were in Dubai. And they said, oh, is it not boring or is it not annoying for you to be with your mom in conferences all the time? Firstly, I was like, wow, he didn't even ask me. But I was like, yeah, go ahead to my son. I thought it can go anyway, right? I'm really like, I was a bit nervous. You know, if you tell kids you want to rather play or sit here at a conference, you know, you don't know what's happening. And he looked at the report and he said, well, I learned today that women were doing something I didn't know. What is your excuse? And I looked at my son. I was, of course, super proud. But I was like, we need to start this conversation in the classrooms, in kindergarten, in primary school, that girls feel comfortable in male domains. And I was in the military for 6 years. I can tell you about that and write books about it, where they thought I was there for coffee. That is how it starts. And then bring the confidence. I'm an investor myself. And I must say, sadly, a lot of the pitches I get from women are not as strong as the one from men. Why? I'm always wondering why. They lack the confidence. They're like, yeah, but here and there. And I'm like, no, you are amazing, right? And then there's people like my husband, who is a brutal businessman, takes down their business plan, like dissects it, gives them not 2 minutes. And I'm like, no, you need to just be boom, boom. You need to have your game there. And I think there as well, we women need to mentor each other, right? We're all founders here. What do we do right? What do we do wrong? How can we help each other? That these pitches, that these moments, these elevator moments just happen and we get it done.
There's a few things there I want to unpack. There's a few things. Number one, what is bias? A lot of this bias is unconscious, but not all of it. So we won't give you the free ticket to say you don't know. Now you know, and you hear these figures, you know. So what are you going to do about it? Okay, I'm talking to everybody in the audience. The best form of funding is a paying customer. We can all be customers of women-owned businesses to actually intentionally go and buy from them, recommend each other. But let's come back to what is the meaning of bias. So bias is when you make a decision about something or somebody based on perception, not fact. So this is about perception. We've got to take off these glasses and put on the proper glasses to see clearly, based on fact. And another thing that's interesting is there are perceptions that women aren't confident. It's actually not true. We're more risk aware than risk averse. We're not scared of risk. The thing is, like in neuroscience, we all know men and women's brain, male and female brains are different. We're wired differently. Women integrate more information. Our database is bigger because the two hemispheres of our brain talk to each other. Men think in tunnel, women think in web. So when an investor asks a woman a question, A, she's retrieving more data than the man. B, when she answers the question, she may go into more detail, which can be perceived, oh, she's waffling, she's going on a tangent, she's not sure of herself. It's simply not true. It's based on perception. So the other thing is that
how do we change those perceptions then?
Yes,
this is the issue. So we have these biases in society. You know, they could come from anywhere. They could come from home, school, society. Like, what do we do? How do we change those?
Call it out.
Yeah.
Call it out. Like I worked a lot in labs when I wrote my thesis on biological terrorism, and I worked with 100 girls, project with Vodafone. And after that, there was girls that came to me and they said, and that's in Luxembourg, right? Not so long ago. And they said, oh, now I know I can become a computer engineer. And I'm like, well, why did you think you couldn't? And she said, my teacher told me so. My teacher said, this is not for girls. I should look for another job that I'm passionate about. And that is the problem, right? When people that you perceive as role models and leaders put these unconscious biases, or their unconscious biases, onto our children, that is a problem. And to call it out, I think that is the first step as a mom.
And then to start young. Because like on the policy recommendations that we make as W20 to G20, one of the things is we talk about is lifelong learning. So we got to start teaching children from the very early age about financial literacy, about entrepreneurism, but also about STEM. And there is a program called BizWorld in the United States, and it came to Europe. I was able to go back to my primary school like 40 years later, and it's a 2-day program where they teach 10-year-olds how to build a company. So they come up with an idea, then they do market research with the 11-year-olds. They ask their classmates for market research. They pitch to investors, and then they get prize money, fake prize money, all over 2 days. And what was amazing was, on day one, before we started, out of the 22 children, we said, who here wants to study business when they go to high school or secondary school? And out of the 22 children, maybe 2 hands went up because they didn't have a clue what it is. So even, they're not being educated early. And then at the end of the 2 days, when they had been exposed to this is what an entrepreneur is, and you can change the world and have great ideas and sell them, after day 2, out of the 22 hands, there were 20 hands that went up and said, I want to study business now. But so we have to start young.
This is really, really good topic, the kids starting young. But if we're looking at the kids topic, so I have interviewed a lot of female founders who have been fundraising, asking, what's the issue? What's the questions that the investors ask you? Mm-hmm. The main one that comes up always is like, are you going to have children? How many do you have?
Who takes care of the kids?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's the problem with having kids? And Kaidi, you have a great story about your son. I think shares.
Well, there is no problem of having kids, because when you can handle a family, you can handle a business. That's like full stop.
We're like logistical maniacs.
And don't even go into answering those questions, because if you're a woman and you pitch your company, you have 30 minutes and you spend 10 minutes on explaining family issues. You're going to spend 33% of the time on non-business related matters. Kill it, forget it. So that's not an issue at all. And with the kids, I mean, my kids have been with me also everywhere. But in a way, I kind of would like to disagree with Tess because that's it's a good thing.
Go for it.
In a way, I don't think we need to change female entrepreneurs to be more pushy, to be more precise, because we need to start accepting diversity. And diversity means that running the business, this means running it also on a different business culture. And there's a feminine way of running the country, and what we see right now, for example, in Europe, and there's a more masculine way of running the company and running the country. The more we accept the diversity, the more we give floor to female way of running leadership rights and the male and the masculine and the feminine way. So accepting the diversity and accepting the different business cultures, because what we very often hear, oh, you female entrepreneurs, you're so emotional. But what is wrong being emotional? I mean, Elon Musk is emotional as well, but we all admire him. And if you think in which company you would like to work with, is it where people are taken care of? Or is it where people are treated as shits? And if this is the way, being emotional, then who takes care of the company? Who takes care of the people and family? So let's accept diversity, and this is where we start. You ask what to change. Guess what is happening right now when we talk about female funding and entrepreneurship in this conference? Investor drinks. So when we talk about female founders in this kind of topics, then don't have investors drinks in the agenda at the same time. So how do we change? So let's change this kind of tiny little way.
Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. But speaking of these investor drinks, so that we could catch up with them there, we have about 5 minutes left. So you did already offer a lot of practical tips what we can do. Maybe also, there are these many things that keep coming up again. Many investors tend to say that they can't find women to invest in. So tell them, where could they find them? Everywhere.
We're everywhere.
Yeah.
We are everywhere. All you have to do is open your eyes and open your mouth. So if you're an investor and you're looking for the next best thing, talk to your male friends and say, okay, what is the great woman founder that you've seen recently, or mixed team? Tell me. You need to start asking your friends, right? That's very important. Then also, when you're going to conferences, start diversifying where you go. So if you're a male investor, start going to conferences where there are more women founders. And I use women rather than female to be more inclusive of people who identify as women. Even changing the language, I think, is important to say not female founder, but woman founder. So we include everybody in that. So start asking. I love to ask the male investors, what percentage of your portfolio are women founders or co-founders? Most of them can't answer that question. And I tend to say, okay, I'll let you off this time, but the next time I meet you, I need an answer. So we need to start buying from more women, asking to see, who they are in our networks, recommending them to each other. So men are fantastic at passing the deals to each other. So say, I met this fantastic female founder or woman founder. You should check her out. And if the deal doesn't meet for you, if it's not a good fit for you, pass it on to your investor network. So start sharing your networks and bring more women founders to these investor conferences as well. Open your networks would be some of the tips I would say.
I think what is also important within that is that when I did that board director course or diploma, after they said to me, we're gonna do a female board director diploma. Do you think that's a great idea? And I said, no. Why? It took us years, decades to get into the same room as these chairmen and men and over 50, right? To be told that you are actually also smart. You need that exchange. As such, I said, what we need is also for all of us, right? When you do these courses, when you speak to people, is really to call out, as I said before, things, like I said, your literature is not accurate to the people in the room, right? Case studies of these women. We were looking at case studies mostly from Europe, but then the other 4 women with me, 2 of them were from Africa, and the other one were from Saudi Arabia. And then there was me, and I said, there's no case studies on them and on female pioneers in these regions. I said, how about you start by having a reflection of your material that looks towards the people you're catering to, or the people you want to attract. Because the men didn't know, obviously, they didn't know I was smart before they talked to me, right? That was insightful for them. And if we're at that basic level, I think the material that they see needs to reflect the learning or the changes we want in our society, right? Talking about your point before, I didn't mean the diversity in the room. What I meant was, and I agree with diversity. Diversity brings a lot of opportunity and funds. We all know that, right? You see it on boards. We need diversity on boards. We need diversity in companies, in funding, and everything. But what we still see is that I think we women are, as you said, yeah, we are more emotional, and we have a different way of portraying business interests and whatnot. But what is important is that we need to, and I was the same, right? Be able to speak up for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And just be able to, instead of being talked over the whole time. It happens to me all the time when men cut me off, or they value my input, but then decisions are still between the guys when they go for drinks in the evening, when I go home and take care of my kids, because that's when it's happening, right? When guys do their stuff.
Yeah.
And I think with that is that we need to be what we are, the women, but we also need to carve our own positions in there.
That's what I thought actually what you meant is we have to speak up and we have to open our mouths and not to be afraid to saying something stupid and not to speak up at all or not to open the mouth at all, because there's one story I learned at the hard way. There was a group of, I was the first IT lawyer in Estonia. I was very young, but we all had to stand up in Estonia to build up the country, and we were writing the Estonian digital signatures law. And there were 2 lawyers in the working group. One of them was me. Guess what? I didn't speak up. I didn't open my mouth because I was so afraid of saying something stupid. And I let myself to treat as the secretary of the working group. And later, when I built up the confidence within the group, I had to start you have to build up yourself, and this is something what we need to encourage also. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because the worst thing we can do to ourselves is to create an image of being a good girl.
Yeah.
Being a good girl means make no mistakes whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's so tough burden we put on ourselves. And then this is how we can push.
I totally agree. We have to speak up, but we also have to think big. We have to believe in ourselves, and we have to ask for more money. Those 3 key things.
But also, I think we women need to support each other and stop backstabbing each other. I think my biggest problems in business, and was it funding and the military, corporate and whatnot, with other women, where we just feel like, I don't know what it is actually. Is it the competition sense, there's not too much spaces on the top? Or is it just the sheer fact that women on the top think other women need to suffer the same in order to be valued for the same? I don't know what it is. But I think we women, and my husband has built numerous companies, and he's the head of entrepreneurship at ETH in Zurich. He said the problem is really women with each other. He said HR was so busy with catfights instead of, always...
Well, I think we have to be very careful, because now we're going down stereotypical road. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you there. I think we have to bring it right back and say
it is a problem.
It is a problem, but it's not the problem.
No, but
women are not the problem. There's never been anything wrong with us. Okay, it's just that we have never been seen for what we are and what we bring to the table. So it's about making a bigger table together instead of hogging it just.
Exactly. That is
We
the
need to
point.
make it bigger. And like I had the opportunity to be in a lunch meeting with President Macron a few years ago, and I was asked to bring suggestions for France on women's economic empowerment. And I was the only one in the room talking about money as the driver and the contributor. So, and people, his advisor said to me, give him suggestions for France. And I had him sitting opposite me, and I said, okay, Mr. President, so here, I'm going to give you suggestions for France, for G7 and G20, because you're sitting at all those tables. So think bigger, right? So I don't think we can't be saying it's women catfighting and stuff. It's true, but it's not the majority of things, right? So in the let's break that myth. Let's be very careful not to perpetuate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it still happens.
It still happens, but it's not the main reason why we're not going to get
but it is a reason, and I think you need to really address everything from the base onwards. And even the small things, as you said before, start small.
And raise stars
get rid of it.
among your own networks. Raise stars, bring female founders and talk. Bring your girls and talk about it. Because when we don't know female founders and strong entrepreneurs, then who else knows?
Amazing. And here we have to wrap it up. But we need more role models who are visible. We need to know who these women are who have funded great things. We got one name. Let's figure out more. But thank you all so much.
Buy from us, fund us, and support us. Okay?
Yeah.
Invest.
All right, it was